I don't believe there's such a thing as a button pushing role. I built an entire team that listened to these phone calls manually and then scored them, positive, negative. I hired this young man, his name's Harsh Gupta. Harsh was an actor and just needed a gig. But what I did, I think, really well was I explained the importance. So Harsh understood the importance of his role, which is really, really, really critical.
Welcome to the Base Coat Brainiac podcast. My name is Austin Hauser. I'm Chief Brainiac over here at Base Coat Marketing. If you own a painting business and you're listening in, you are in the right place. Now today, I have a guy whose name rhymes with awesome. He's a college dropout, entrepreneur, author, and the founder of not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but 6, 7, and 8-figure businesses, along with 2 successful exits under his belt. He's now on a mission to learn what makes AI tick so you guys can help better prepare your business for the future. Kasim Aslam, thanks for being here, brother.
Austin, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate you.
So that intro alone opens up a number of topics of discussion here, but I was actually just Googling your name before this podcast and found a short-haired version of you with the title movie director under it on Google. Did you direct movies at some point in the past as well?
I've been in 80 films. The reason I started my entrepreneurial journey is I wanted to be an actor, and I just needed something I could do from set. You know, the classic trope is hurry up and wait, and so I started trying to outsource gobbledygook, just whatever anybody would pay me to do. And it turns out you'd be surprised at how few roles there are for 12-foot tall Pakistanis. Like, they're just not really telling our story. So the acting didn't work out. The short hair was a byproduct of violent insecurities and me trying to pretend like I was pseudo or semi-professional. The long hair now, if you're listening, my hair is unkempt. I look homeless. My dad likes to say the more money I make, the more homeless I look. And this I think is a midlife crisis. So I have a lot of swings, man. I'm not very healthy from an emotional perspective, Austin, but I made a lot of money. So hopefully that accounts for it, right? Like, we can't all have everything.
That's right, man. Hey, we all got our faults. So take me back in time, man. Where'd you get started? How'd you get here today? Tell me your story.
I'm a welfare baby. I was raised by a blind single mother on Social Security disability in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And the reframe I'll offer you is a welfare baby is a lot like your trust fund baby, because, you know, a trust is a pocket of money set aside to make sure that somebody is fed, clothed, housed, and educated. And my trust just happened to say United States Social Security Office. And so I was blessed to be born in a country that won, right? Like, we built this infrastructure that allows for the care of people that my mom went blind and she couldn't work. She was all by her lonesome. My dad jumped ship. And so me and my little brother were cared for by society at large. The reason I make that point is because I have a passion for helping people in emerging nations find meaningful work. The infrastructure we have, most countries don't have. And so I feel very strongly that one of the things that we could do as entrepreneurs to influence the rest of the world, and that influence has anthropological implications, is to hire people in emerging nations. And I think you can still do that when you're a local business. As a matter of fact, I think the biggest needle mover might be that, and we can talk about that if you want, or we don't have to jump on my soapbox. I started out as an entrepreneur at 7 years old. I'd go to this little gas station called Lone Star. I'd buy candy for 10 cents and sell it for 25 cents at school. And my ideas have not gotten any better, dude. Like, I stuck it out and stuck with the grind. My claim to fame, I built the #1 ranked Google Ads agency in the world. I sold that in October of 2022 to a SoftBank-backed MarTech company for 8 figures. Worst thing you can do to poor people is give us money, because I instantly became an angel investor. And I've been running around trying to lose it as fast as I can ever since. And so far, I'm doing a great job. Like, I just could not be more epic. If you ever want to make $1 billion, swear to God, this is 100%, Austin, proof of concept. You go short any stock. And then you tell me what that stock is, and I'll buy it. And then God will see that I've purchased that stock, and it will instantly plummet. And then and then we'll split it, right? Like, that feels like a win-win for me.
Yeah, I hear that, man. Look, I love your background. I think the stories that we tell ourselves around where we've come from or the challenges that we've had in our life is ultimately what allows us to continue to succeed in life. I firmly believe in the growing from challenges, right? Talk to me about hiring. Now, this is something that I feel very passionately about, is the people build the company. We have a team in our company. We got 35 team members today. They are a mix of US based and international. And I honestly, man, I think some of these international team members work twice as hard as some of our US team members at the same damn job. That I think also aligns with the culture and the work ethic as well. These younger generations don't always have the same work ethic, but the bottom line that I'm trying to get to is the people build the company. Talk to me about your passion around hiring and especially outside of the US.
So I wrote a book. It's called Hire. It's my life's work. I spent 20 years cracking the code and building a functional system to build a pipeline for hiring that attracts true top talent. It works domestically and internationally. And what I'll say is you're 7 steps away from the greatest hire you've ever had in your entire life. It requires a complete and total paradigm change, though. The problem with hiring is entrepreneurs are taught exactly wrong. Like, we're taught to do everything in what I mean, and I'm trying not to exaggerate or be hyperbolic, but it's the exact worst way. When we set out to hire, if you read any business book, pull a business book off the shelf by the greats, dude, Covey, Dalio, Maxwell, I don't care who, people that I love and respect dearly. The references to human participation within the confines of an entrepreneurial endeavor are always through the lens of commodity, always. And you know that because of the way that we speak about hiring. It's like, oh, I need to get a new painter. I need to get a new accountant. I need to get a new graphic designer. That's a conversation about commodity, as though a person is interchangeable. Commodity by definition is something that's easily interchangeable, right? So if you have a can of beans and I have a can of beans and we swap, you and I are no better or worse off than we were moments ago. But if you've got, a journeyman carpenter and I've got a journeyman carpenter, and we swap, that could be a catastrophically damaging to one or both of us. And this is where I'm going to get a little existential on you, but I promise I'm going to bring it back. A person is a miracle. You have to believe that. The human animal, this super smart chimpanzee roaming around on this floating rock, solving problems and sending shit into space, it's like we're just so unlikely. And even an atheist would have to look at this and kind of wink at the sky and be like, all right, this is nuts. People are amazing. People are extraordinary. People are so important, so valuable, so capable. And this paradigm that we have about there's no such thing as good help these days, and if you want something done, do it yourself, it's killing you and it's killing your business. You have to flip it. The expectation has to be a miracle. You have to have extraordinarily high expectations. Here's why. When you hire people through the lens of commodity, you get nothing that a person would bring to the table from a value perspective. You only get the things that a robot could bring to the table, and you don't get it as good as a robot could do it. So we're benefiting nothing from humanity, and the only thing we're benefiting from is about to, surprise, surprise, hint, hint, be replaced by AI and robotics on a long enough timeline. So what we need to do is we need to flip the script. Step 1, by the way, of my process is you have to have unreasonably high expectations. There's my business is called Pareto Talent. I own a staffing agency. You don't have to hire me, by the way. My book will teach you how to do everything I do yourself, and you'll be able to save a bunch of money because we charge a premium. But it's called Pareto Talent. It's named after the Pareto distribution, which is Pareto was an Italian mathematician who identified what people call the 80-20 rule. It's the most important mathematical principle in business and life. And what people don't understand is it's fractal. I didn't understand this either, by the way. It's fractal. Here's what that means. Let's say you have a 1,000-person organization. Okay, there's a company that has 1,000 employees. Pretty big shop. Of those 1,000 employees, 200 do 80% of the work. And this is a statistical truism that's true in every single organic ecosystem. It's true. 20% of the criminals commit 80% of the crimes. 20% of the customers are worth 80% of your revenue. 20% of the employees do 80% of the work. So 1,000-person organization, 200 are doing 80% of the work. And you're like, okay, that's reasonable. I've seen that. I understand. I agree. Great. We're not done. Zoom in on those 200. When you zoom in on those 200, 40 people are doing 80% of that work. Zoom in on the 48 are doing 80% of that work. When you zoom all the way in at a 1,000-person organization, one person is doing 25% of the work. And Austin, I've seen this over and over and over and over in every entity I've ever been involved in. When I sold Solutions 8 for 8 figures, I had one employee out of 80 managing 40% of my revenue. Now, most people see that and they're like, oh no, keyman insurance risk, quick, diversify the risk, right? What happens when you diversify the risk? They come in, and this is why bureaucratic organizations are built this way. They have minimums, they have quotas. What does that mean? Mediocrity. It's forced mediocrity. When you fight the Pareto distribution, you flatten a hierarchy. Hierarchies they look like a functional hierarchy, looks like a pyramid. Your highest value assets move to the top of the pyramid. When you flatten a hierarchy, you get rid of your highest value assets. We are being taught to build businesses with forced mediocrity. It's insanity. And you can index towards the Pareto distribution. You can index towards these literal miracles of humans that will move mountains and run through walls. And dude, I've done it. I've done it multiple times. If you're listening, you can't see me. When you see me, I'm so unimpressive. I'm so much more successful than I deserve to be. I'm the dumbest person that's ever worked for any organization I've owned. The only thing I've ever cracked the code on, the only thing I'm world class at is talent acquisition. Find these people, get out of their way. I built the #1 ranked Google Ads agency in the world. I've never run a Google ad campaign myself end to end in my life. I had the highest performing real estate investment campaign on the planet before I knew anything about real estate investing or lead generation. I own the largest English speaking Montessori community in the world. I'm not a trained Montessorian. I don't own a Montessori school. I have a 10th grade education. I'm a dropout. Like, there's not an industry I can't conquer because I've cracked the talent code. And I don't care if you're a local business or a local contractor. This talent code is available and accessible to you because most people are trying to do the opposite. They're actually trying to get manageable people. Guess what? Surprise, surprise. Manageable people need to be managed. They're aiming at mediocrity. Flip the script, dude, and like, good golly, it's unreal what people are capable of. I hope that wasn't too much. No,
that was brilliant. So it's interesting. We have a core value. It's called be the 20%. We live and die by that.
I love that.
When we look at marketing in particular, there's a lot of shit that somebody can pay you to do that doesn't move the needle. We only invest our time into the 20% of things that are going to generate 80% of your results. Everything else you can do on your own, or you can pay somebody else to do, but it's not going to be us. Again, that's a core value that we cannot live without. And to your point, I think it defines every aspect of what you do in your life or your business. Now, talk to me more about the person behind the company, right? So if we're looking at the one person that's managing 40% of your revenue, how do you identify that person? You mentioned talent acquisition. That's exactly what it is, but there's 100 different ways to go about that. So break that down a little bit more for us here.
Yeah. So if you don't mind diving into the process, step one is you have to assume that you're going for peak performers. You have to reframe your paradigm. And that also means that you have to be a place that a peak performer would want to work. So this is step two, by the way. Hiring is a sales funnel. Hiring is a sales funnel. You need to attract top talent. Top talent has their pick of the litter. What does that mean? I'm about to say a bunch of things that are very repellent, but I promise I'm gonna land the plane hopefully in a way that brings most people around. Winners want to win. How do we keep scoring business in work and in life? It's money. If you want a peak performer, the first thing, not the only thing, the first thing you have to do is you have to pay more. And everybody's like, oh my God, no, I can't. What are you thinking? That's crazy. You don't know my margins, my model, my whatever. And I'm like, no, you don't understand math. Here's what happens. People say, well, pay more. How much more? And then I say 10% more than the high water mark. And then they flip. And they're like, I can't do that. Because when you're hiring commodities, the best way, by the way, to buy a commodity is pay the least amount for the most commodity, right? If you're buying beans or corn or oil or crude or whatever, that's how we buy commodities. And we're taught to hire people like we buy commodities. And so we try to pay the least and get the most. And so if you're trying to hire a new employee, and let's just say, to use round numbers, because I am a dropout, that the range for an employee would be 80 to 100 rubies a month to hire this person. Every entrepreneur on the planet has been taught to try to pay 79.9 rubies and get the best person they can get for 79.9. And then here comes this joker who says, no, you got to pay 10% more than the high water mark. And they're like, dude, I just can't. And I'm like, if you do, you're not going to get 10% more output or 50% more output or 100% more output. You're going to get 3 times, 50 times, 100 times the output. The math can't not math. And then what people do is they turn around and they go, okay, 10% more than 80. And I say, no, 10% more than the high water mark, and 80 to 100 is 110. You need to swing to the other end of the spectrum. You need to be paying more than anybody's paying in your market ever. Not just pay more in money. You need to pay more in autonomy and time and attention and benefits. Treat people like real life humans. Don't screenshot desktops. Don't make a grown ass man ask to pee. You know what I mean? Like, be a place that a peak performer would want to work. Be a place, live by your values. Do what you say you're going to do. Be good at what you do. Treat customers in a way that people feel is fulfilling. Because if you can't do those things, you're never going to get peak performers. Be awesome. Be awesome. I'm assuming you are if you're listening to this, because the type of person who takes this type of education isn't phoning it in, right? So step 2, be the type of place that a person would want to work, and create a job posting that articulates that. Step 2 is the job posting. Show them, hey, I'm going to pay more and I'm going to treat you awesome. And this is a great place to work. Oh, and by the way, I have unreasonably high expectations. I'm going to give you the most. I'm going to expect the most. Guess what? Peak performers love that. They want to be stretched. They want to grow. Now, here's what's going to happen if you do it right. Stop me, by the way, Austin, if I go too far too fast.
Keep going.
You are going to get inundated If you do this right, you will know you did it right because you are going to get inundated with applications. If you don't get inundated with applications, this is step 3, you have to have a distribution strategy. Remember, this is a sales letter. Your job posting is a sales letter. Hiring is a marketing funnel. Marketing requires traffic. The number of entrepreneurs that create a job posting, put it up one time on one job board, and then just sit there being like, man, nobody wants to work these days. It's like, are you out of your freaking mind? You put up one ad in the Yellow Pages 20 years ago and think it's going to run you through business? It's the same thing. It's a traffic problem. Push it. It should be on every job board. Put a little money behind the job boards because they'll prioritize you. You should push it out on Craigslist. Push it out on social. Go push it out on the local TAC board. Put it up on the Starbucks wall. Tell the local schools so they can tell the parents. Like there's communities, mom and pop shops, the next door. There's all these there's so many ways to get the word out there. You've got this amazing job. Spread the word. Carpet bomb whatever geography it is that you are hiring in, so that you actually have distribution. That's step 3. Once you've achieved distribution, assuming you've got an amazing offer and lots of traffic, which by the way is what marketing takes, right? And it's just offer times repetition equals success. So you have this amazing offer, you have lots of traffic. Step 4 is filter the stack. You're going to have to filter because you should get just overwhelmed with people coming to you and be like, Austin, I want to work for you. You're paying me more than anybody is willing to pay me domestically. You're letting me work on a semi-flexible schedule, let's say. You're going to be autonomous. I'm going to get to grow. I get to do good work. You've got the great community. I want to be there. So you're going to get hundreds of applications if you're local. You'll get thousands of applications if you're hiring internationally and it's a remote job. How do you deal with that, right? Needle in a stack of needles. Here's what you do. I call them fly traps. And I have hundreds of them. They're in the book. Your audience can have the book for free, by the way. Go to thehirebook.com. There's no ascension. There's no sales pitch. There's no course on the other end. You get the book. You get the audiobook. You get the cheat sheets. You get all the resources. Everything that you need to do this, including the fly traps. But I'll give you a couple just as a teaser. The every job post I post says, to apply, your subject line must read, I actually read the instructions. If they send me an email and it doesn't read, I actually read the instructions, it's automatically filtered out. And you can do all of this via Zapier and ChatGPT or just have your EA do it. For those that land, guess what? They actually have to read the instructions. So I'll say things like, send me your resume in a link to your resume in a PDF format with this naming convention. Do I care that it's a link and not an attachment? No. Do I care that it's Word or a PDF and not Word? No. I want to know you can stop, slow down, pay attention to instructions. I'll ask questions like, if you're an animal, what kind of animal would you be? Tell me about your experience in this role. What does this particular Bible quote mean to you? Let's say that's something really important to you and important to your values. Like, find things that will let you identify the will, not the skill. Hire for will, train for skill. Hire for will, train for skill. It's a statistical truism across all levels of analysis, unless you get to the top 2% of skill requirements. So that exception aside, always, always, always hire for will, train for skill. So you have all these fly traps, these little tests that people need to go through. You filter out people who don't follow the instructions, which sadly is going to be about 80% of the people. For the remainder, you filter out people based off of their answers, not their resumes and not their background. Don't do that. You're doing yourself a disservice. Now, the whole world teaches us to hire using resumes and interviews. Both are garbage. They tell you nothing. Here's what you do. You shortlist 10 to 20 people. And this is going to be repellent again, but just let me try to land the plane and hopefully I can bring people around. You are going to pay them in advance to do a trial project. So if you're hiring internationally, depending on where you're hiring, you're going to pay a certain amount of money to justify 2 hours of the time. If you're hiring in the Philippines, that could be $10. If you're hiring in Latin America, maybe it's 20. If you're hiring domestically, maybe it's 50. Oh no, good God, I can't imagine that. 10 people shortlisted at $50 per is $500. And you're like, Kasim, I can't afford to pay $500. No. Are you kidding me? This is a $500 insurance policy to make sure you don't bring on a bad hire. Worst thing you can do for your business. The most expensive thing you can do for your business is bring on a bad hire. For $500, I'm going to teach you so much. Here's what you do. You apply for a job for me. You're like, hey, dude, I want to work at your painting business. I'm like, dude, awesome. Listen, I've learned enough to know interviews, resumes tell me nothing until we've worked together. Here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to pay you $50 for 2 hours of your time. It's not going to make you rich, but it's going to tell you that I respect your time and it's going to let me hold you to the level of accountability that would be necessary for a paid trial project. And I'm going to send you a 2-hour project and that's the scope of work. If you agree, send me your PayPal address. I'll send you money in advance. They agree 99% of the time. They send you the PayPal or the Wise or the Payoneer or the transfer, whatever the geography is. Here's the trick though. You send them the $50 and you don't follow up and you don't send them the trial project. And then you wait to see. And what'll happen is, first of all, for $50, I get to see if you have integrity, if you're going to ghost me, if you're going to jump ship, if you're accountable. I have people follow up a month later being like, hey dude, you sent me money and you never sent me the trial project. I'm like, thank God I didn't hire you. Person who very obviously needs to be monitored every step of the way. For the people that follow up, you send them a trial project. You do not send them a trial project that is a check the box project. Even if this is a tactile job, for an auto mechanic, you can come up with trial projects, and all it is can you think for yourself? Can you be creative? Can you solve problems, or am I going to have to watch you? So I would send them a project like, hey, we need to accomplish this particular goal. We have to paint this house. We have this commercial job, and this is the requirement from the client. But there are these variables, these problems, these issues. This is the budget. This is the whatever. What would you do? And you create the trial project on a per role basis. If they're managing people, incorporate people managing. If they're buying materials, incorporate buying materials. 2 hours worth of work, which is not insignificant, by the way. 2 hour trial project is a big project. But what I like to do is I like to have projects that require back and forth communication, because it's not about how well they do the job as an end result. It's how well they do the job when they're doing the job, right? Because you're going to have to work with this person. You go back and forth. I also like to be really sneaky. So I'll do things like, in order to do the project, you have to download the assets or the resources. So go log into this Dropbox account or this Google Drive account, or pick your poison. And what I'll say is, here's the scope of work. When will you have this done by? I never tell them. I ask them. I want to know, can you manage expectations? Can you communicate? Can you assess how long something's going to take? So let's say it's Monday and they say, hey, I've got a full-time job. I got to do this nights and weekends type thing. I'll have it done by Friday. Great. Fantastic. Can't wait to hear from it. By the way, log into this Drive account in order to get all the assets. I send them the username and password. I send them the wrong password. And then I wait how long before I get the frantic email saying the password doesn't work. For the people that wait until Thursday night, I know you're a procrastinator. You go through all of this. The people that send you the trial project, if the project is good, that's the most hireable person you've ever encountered in your professional life. I promise you. You're going to have a whole list of bloodthirsty, deadly assassins, killers, people that really do run through walls, pay attention, are proactive, because there's 2 jobs you're asking for. There's the job that's the job, and then there's the job that's doing the job. It's being accountable, showing up on time, being creative, being thoughtful, being proactive, all the things we want to have employees. When you go to interview, now your interview process, I forgot where I am in the steps. So step 4 is filter the stack. Step 5 is run the trials. Step 6 is going to be, step 4 is step 5 is the trial. Step 6 is conduct the interviews. Here's what people don't realize about the interviews. You're no longer interviewing to see who gets the job. Everybody can get the damn job. Choose whoever is the best. The interview process sets the expectation for the job. So, for example, let's say that you bonus everybody on your painting team at the end of a job, as long as you get a review from the client. The client jumps on Google or Yelp and offers a review. And if you don't get the review, they don't get the bonus. If you hire somebody and then tell them about that policy, that's a bait and switch, and they're mad at you. But in the interview, I can say, hey, Austin, I need you to know, if I send you out on a job, if you're running the job, if you're the head of the job, the bonus structure is XYZ, which you probably already know because it was probably in the job description. But you don't get the bonus unless you get the client review. Talk to me about your capability of doing that type of thing. Now that I've managed that expectation, you sell me on the fact that you can do that. Every single skunk for the job gets brought up in the interview. And I now am managing you as an employee, but I'm getting you to sell me and to begin to set the expectations that are required so that when we move into management, we've had all these preferential conversations ahead of time. And then step 7 is onboard for success. Nobody runs faster than they do the first 90 days of work. So if there are 10 things to do in a day, I'm going to give you 12. Most people do the exact opposite. They're like, come on in, sit down here. We've got a beanbag chair for you, and you're going to watch these training videos and take it slow, buddy. Like, we want you to. And then when you're done, you can go shadow Jeremy because he's 80 years old and on his way out, and it'll take him a long time to catch up. And then we'll give you one project or one job or one client. And if you don't screw that, and by day 91, when you're ready for them to really be a producer, you have lulled them to sleep. They're fat and happy. They don't want to work. Start them strong. If there's 10 things to do in a day, give them 12. There's no expectation that you do 12, but Parkinson's law says that work is going to expand into the time allotted. And so what I want to know is, I want to know what 2 are you going to have to push through tomorrow? And you decide, dude. You be accountable, proactive, thoughtful, intentional, etc. The second thing you need to do when we're starting people strong is treat them like adults. Delegate projects, not tasks. Don't look over their shoulder. Don't change things. The minute you take an adult human and you look over their shoulder and you're like, oh, you know what? Change the square to a circle. Change red to blue. Yeah, I don't like where you put that line. They consciously or subconsciously, they take their hands off the wheel. They're like, all right, Austin's driving. The second worst thing that can happen is that thing fails, because now it fails and it's your fault, dude. You're the one that told me square to circle, red to blue. The worst thing that can happen is it succeeds, because now they have no ownership over the success. The only thing you're allowed to critique as an employer are the objective truths. Hey, just so you know, the studs have to be 18 inches apart. If they're not, the inspector comes in and makes us do it again. But not, I don't like the way you polish this, or I don't like the way, you know what I mean? Leave it alone. If it's subjective, shut your mouth. Chances are that young buck probably knows something you don't, and they're right and you're wrong. But if you do that, if you filter this way, if you bring people on, if you expect miracles, if you have high expectations, if you let adults be adults, let them make a mistake every now and then, God forbid, you know, like, you are going to end up with the greatest pool of humanity and the impact to your business and the impact to your life. I've always felt like entrepreneurship when I first started, dude, it was like I'm on this muddy hill. There's this mountain I'm trying to climb, and it's raining, and I'm by myself, and I'm wet, and I'm cold, and I'm tired, and I'm pulling this sled that is my business, and I'm the mule, and I've got these leather straps hooked up to the sled, and I'm like muscling my way up, and they're digging into my flesh, and I'm bleeding, and then I'm like, I finally can't do it alone, and I hire somebody to help me. And to hire him to help me, I'm like, all right, you do this little task, and then I throw them up on the sled to do this little task, and then I pull them too. And then you hire again, and you hire again, and hire, and you're like, why is it getting harder? And when you finally learn to hire a peak performer, and the person comes alongside you and grabs their own strap and starts to pull, and then you find people that pull faster and harder and better than you, and then you find people that say, hey, dude, why don't you sit this one out? You're slowing us down. Why don't you go over there and just go find more people to pull sleds for us? And then it reframes everything, man. I have a portfolio of 17 businesses. I'm a freaking high school dropout. Every single one of them is either profitable or so viable I can't contain myself. And I don't run one day to day. And all I've done is crack the talent code. Crack talent. There's nothing else to crack.
How many bad hires did you have to make before you cracked that code?
Bro, every rule I have, when you go read the book, this is actually, I'm the world's greatest failure, Austin. I failed at everything twice. Every rule I have is actually birthed from something that went wrong. So like the password thing, me trying to figure out when people were accountable and how they were accountable, like every rule that I have, you know what I'll do? I do this if I'm ever hiring a salesperson or a client manager, when I schedule the interview, I'll cancel last minute or I just won't show up, because I've had salespeople or client managers be very unkind to clients. And if you're in sales or you're managing clients, you're going to get ghosted all the time. So I'm going to ghost you and see, I've been cursed out before, which is interesting. And then more interestingly, or more importantly, I've had people just not follow up. And I'm like, I'm hiring you for a job where this is going to happen to you, and I need you to be able to follow up. So anything that goes wrong, just go bring that back in your hiring process. And that's the way that you sharpen this saw and that you iterate. And what's cool is everything that is necessary for the job, I think for the most part, can be embedded in your hiring process, especially in the trial project. So if you see something go wrong with an employee, go build that into the trial project, and you'll start to further hone. And what's nice is this is really hard to do, by the way. Building this funnel is tedious as all get out. Even with my templates, the first time you build it, you're going to be like, this is hard. I never should have listened to that brown guy. There's too much work involved. I have more to do. But once you've built it once, it's the gift that will give for the rest of your entrepreneurial life. You'll never need to build it again, assuming the trial project doesn't, like, I don't know what software changes or what rules, what legislation comes out, and you have to update that. That's the only thing that you'll ever update. You will just have this lever you can pull that just, forgive me, but shits out extraordinary talent. And it runs in a way that will actually, I think talent acquisition is the single biggest driver for new business growth. If you have good people, you won't need to advertise. Mark my words. Remember I said that. If you have good people, there are only 4 things a business can sell: programs, processes, products, people. Those are the only 4. And the first 3, small businesses have 0 value proposition. Think about it. Processes, commodities anybody have access to. Programs, commodities anybody has access to. Products, commodities anybody has access to. The only value propositions wrapped up in those 3 asset classes are if you're one of the $1 trillion companies that can actually create the damn thing. The only value proposition we have is people. But interestingly, we're also the only asset class from a business perspective that can benefit from the human person as a miracle. As soon as a business gets in excess of about 100 employees, the bureaucratic system necessary to continue to grow that business forces what we talked about earlier, which is the flattening of the hierarchy and mandatory minimums, quotas. That they can't afford to view every person as unique, because a scaled business can't look at the human endeavor that way. That's why all business books are written the way they're written. So you and I have the ability to be nimble. Now, it doesn't scale. That's okay. Scale is bad. In the age of AI, scale kills a business. Do the things that don't scale. And one of those things is looking at humans as true miracles, as God-given miracles, as deities incarnate that are capable of anything. And if you view a human being like that, but you'll never need to advertise again, because you're going to send them out on the job and people are going to be like, who the F is that? And then the whole world starts to know. And one last note on that point for entrepreneurs, it's important for you to know Most people do not want to be entrepreneurs. You're broken. There's a book by Douglas Brackman called Driven that's really worth reading. It talks about the epigenetic phenomena that is entrepreneurship. Douglas has identified the fact that roughly about 5% of the human population, so 1 in 20, experiences the chemical cocktail for love, which is dopamine and serotonin up and norepinephrine down, in pursuit of a goal instead of when they accomplish the goal. 95% of the human population experiences it upon the achievement of a goal. So he calls it the hunter brain and the farmer brain. Entrepreneurs are the hunter brains. You're broken. Your brain doesn't work right. So thinking, oh God, because here's the problem is entrepreneurs are afraid of competence. They're afraid of peak performers. They're afraid of people that will go out to the job and do it better than them and then steal other clients or their customers. Statistically speaking, those people don't want to be entrepreneurs. They want you. So don't hamstring yourself by hiring people. If you're the smartest person that works for you, you're an idiot. If you're the best person that works for you, you're an idiot. You're just asking for this life you have that's hard. Go get peak performers and cut them loose, man. And every now and then, will you find somebody that, kind of moves the needle the way they shouldn't or takes advantage or steals a client? Yeah. But the balance of risks, the risk reward, it's staggering. It's a nit on the balance sheet. Go find these peak performers, cut them loose, and it'll change everything about your business.
Personality assessments, where does that fit in? Is it something you use or care about?
All the time. I use predictive index. That's my favorite. I use it on both levels. I test the personality of the resource of the hire. I also test the personality of the team and or supervisor they're going to be working with, because both are relevant. What I really like to do is take the people that are best to the job, do a personality test on them, and then look for those personalities. To give you an example, when I'm hiring an executive assistant, which I think is the most important hire for any entrepreneur, and everybody should have an EA, I like Maverick best for me, but you might like a captain best, right? And so people tend to look at personality as a two-dimensional data point. Like, what do you need to be? And it's like, no. What do you need to be within the confines of the environment that I'm bringing you in? And by the way, Mr. or Mrs. Business Owner, Entrepreneur, test your own damn personality too, because chances are you're the problem with all of your hires. Chances are you suck. You don't provide feedback. You don't communicate. You don't delegate right. You have shortcomings. So know what personality you are. And that's why I like predictive index, because it shows you these are your strengths, these are your weaknesses, and these are the things that person's going to struggle with when they work with you. And I bring it up in the interview. I'm like, hey, Austin, says here that I tend to overwhelm people like you. How are we going to deal with that? And then you have to say, well, if I get overwhelmed, I'll tell you. And then if you ever get overwhelmed, I get to say, hey, buddy, do you remember in the interview when I managed this expectation and I really need you to pipe up when you get overwhelmed? Now, what I need to do is when you pipe up and get overwhelmed, I need to take that seriously, which might be my propensity not to do. But love personality assessments, believe in them very strongly. I didn't as a kid, as a young entrepreneur. I thought they were stupid pseudoscience. Now I'm like, dude, these things are shockingly accurate, but you don't rely on them wholesale. Because again, people are miracles, dude, and people are unique, beautiful snowflakes, et cetera, et cetera. They can break out of those molds. And interestingly, they can evolve and they can change. And that sword cuts both ways. You know what I mean? So
absolutely. It's funny. Every single time I've made a hire and went against the assessment based on the benchmarks, as you mentioned, you always test the highest performer in that seat on your current team. And that's the benchmark you want to aim for, right? Every single time, it's never worked out. Yeah. And that's also why I'm the last person that I ever speak to in that entire interview process. I want to make sure that they speak to a number of people before me who does not have that, that love for everybody and the perspective of, hey, I'm going to see the best in you. They're going to kind of cut through the bullshit before it gets to me. Right. Talk to me about your process as it stands today. Is it good for every seat in a company? Meaning, if you have a button pusher, somebody that needs to follow SOPs, is this really applicable to them, or is this more for the high-level strategic side of a company?
It's the only role I've found that this doesn't work for is outbound sales. And I think my thesis there is that outbound salespeople don't sit around looking at job boards for a job. They go kick down doors and get jobs because that's what they do. I don't believe, to be frank, I hope this doesn't come across as combative. We're coloring together. I don't believe there's such a thing as a button pushing role. I'll give you an example. Solutions 8, we as an agency would catalyze thousands of inbound phone calls because we're running ads for people. I had $100 million in ad spend under management. And so thousands of inbound phone calls. What most agencies did was just say any call that lasts more than 45 seconds is a lead. You and I both know that is not true. So what I did is I built an entire team that listened. This is before sentiment analysis existed. That's how old I am. I built an entire team that listened to these phone calls manually and then scored them, positive, negative, very binary. easy job. Dare I say, God forbid, brain dead job in some ways, right? Listen to the call recording. Was it good? Was it bad? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Add notes, and that's where it wasn't brain dead. Improvement requirements necessary, and then move on to the next call. Very difficult job. But you might say button push, data entry. I hired this young man. His name's Harsh Gupta. He's in India. Harsh was an actor, interestingly, in India, which, 7 times the size. Bollywood is 7 times the size of Hollywood. So tons of people in film there trying to make it, and just needed a gig. Not passionate about what we're doing. And this wasn't a great job, right? So most people would phone this in and be like, just get a warm body. The problem is those warm bodies are going to burn out because it's a tough job. I put Harsh in my funnel, comes out the other end, smelling like sunshine and rainbows, because he's so motivated not to listen to phone calls all day, to get a job so he can go be an actor. And it's great for him because it's my daytime, his nighttime. And so he's auditioning during the day and working during the night. But what I did, I think, really well was I explained the importance. I'm like, Harsh, I've got $100 million of other people's money that I'm spending. And a lot of these are small businesses that very margin thin. We optimize off of the data that you're providing me. So if you say good phone call, I go to the $1 trillion AI-driven optimization mechanism that is Google or Meta, and I say, give me more of those. If I have a small painting client, mom and pa kettle, spending $4,000 a month in their geography, which is a ton of money for them, and I say, give me more bad calls, it will destroy their campaign. And that's true, by the way. So Harsh understood the importance of his role, which is really, really, really critical. Far too often, employers, we have a diminishing view and expectation of what we're asking somebody to do, which, again, it's not high expectations. You're not expecting a miracle. Just because it's a simple job doesn't mean you don't want miracles. So every role needs to be articulated in a way that allows for the understanding of its profound importance. One of the things you could do is, I'm hiring for a receptionist for the front of my shop, dude. I just need somebody with a pulse who can answer the phone. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's the first human being everyone, clients, vendors, employees, and otherwise, is going to encounter. They're the face of your company. They're the core representation, and they're critically important, right? Both of those things could be true. It depends on you. So I don't think there's such a thing as a small role, to quote Shakespeare.
Let me give you an
if,
example, and I would love for you to articulate what kind of passion that somebody could find in this role. I'm going back to, I think I was in, I don't know what grade this was. I was 14 years old. It was one of the first companies that would hire me, the Hershey company. I used to live in Hershey, Pennsylvania. And
no way, how cool, dude.
Yeah, I got a job at Chocolate World. I was sweeping the floors in there. Literally had a broom and a mop. That was one of my first jobs in I think I was in high school at that point. How would you define the passion that somebody should feel in a role like that?
Is this a warehouse environment or like a?
No, this is customer facing. But let's make it even worse. Let's say you're in a warehouse.
Okay, this is great. So number one, if you're sweeping up the floor of a warehouse, what you're really doing is you're protecting the people that work at that warehouse from injury. I would say something to the effect of 70 to 80% of the injuries that occur in any warehouse environment from an OSHA perspective result from the most rudimentary lackings. So it would be things like not properly sweeping, not washing windows, not doing things that allow for clear visibility, clear line of sight when I'm walking. More often than not, what you'll notice is, and I start pointing this out to you, I've got my arm around your shoulder and I'm like, Austin, I need you to know how important this is. Do you see that man over there? He's 55 years old. He's had one knee replacement. He has a bad back. He has 2 little kids he's trying to put through private school. And we can't really afford private school here in Hershey, Pennsylvania, as you know. So he's making massive sacrifices to do it. He works overtime. And if he falls and trips, it's over. He gets 2 weeks of unemployment. And then I don't know what he's going to do for the rest of his life. So you could just look at this as, I'm just sweeping floors. Or you could look at this as, I'm protecting that man's livelihood. And here's the thing, to be honest with you, I don't think that's a spin job. If something's worth paying somebody, whatever minimum wage was at the time to do it, it's worth it for a reason. We have to intuit what that reason is. If you're in food service, dude, a human being is going to consume this. I worked at McDonald's. This was my first job. I was 14 years old too. I had to get my mom to sign off. Children consumed the food that I prepared. And I can tell you, as a 14-year-old kid who's an absolute dipshit, not a very kind person at the time, I was not an ideal employee at all. And if somebody had said, I want you to remember every hamburger you make or every set of nuggets that you put together could go in the mouth of a 3-year-old. And what that child consumes is going to have an impact on everything from their microbiome to their cognition. Watch yourself. That would have made an impact. There's not an unimportant job. There can't be, or we wouldn't pay people to do it.
You talked about AI and that taking jobs over. There's no such thing as an unimportant job. What would you argue in the face of AI? Would you claim that those maybe are less important, or that there's other jobs out there? How would you articulate AI and a job being important?
Well, I don't think the two things are mutually exclusive. So what we tend to do is we tend to look at the ubiquitous availability of a resource and tie it to value. But my question for you is the internet valuable? And your answer would be, of course, it's supremely valuable. It might be the most valuable asset we have, but it's free. So how could it be valuable? And that's the disconnect that we have with AI. The AI-driven mechanisms, it's not that they're not valuable, it's that they're no longer profit-driving mechanisms. We're looking at the biggest labor collapse in human history. That's an absolute fact. Anybody that argues with that is not paying attention and does not understand what's happening.
Yep.
If you look at the labor distribution in this country alone, Uber and Lyft are the second largest employer, second only to the US government. Driving is the single most, what would you say? Driving is the number one vocation of every adult male. And we're seeing, I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. If you're anywhere in the American Southwest, you're seeing Waymo and autonomous vehicles. We can't not look at that and say those people, and it's not just them. Look at the what happens on the blast radius, the periphery. So auto mechanics fall to 10% of the available need. Parking lot attendants, concrete resurfacing, traffic cops, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Garage door repair. My buddy Tommy Mello has $1 billion garage door repair business. And I'm like, bro, sell that thing. Cash your check now. We're looking at the biggest labor collapse in human history. Does that mean that the roles that the bots are going to accomplish are unnecessary and unimportant? No, absolutely. It means that they're so important that we would invest in an AI-driven mechanism in order to accomplish those tasks or those roles. What I will say is I don't believe that AI or robotics, because the industry that we're talking to on your behalf, I think, doesn't suffer from AI as much as they will suffer from robotics. AI can't paint a house, a robot can. And that robot's coming a lot faster than you think. They already have robot sanitary departments. They have robots that will go through office buildings and clean toilets and sinks, and the painting's coming.
Yep.
And I'm not trying to scare anybody. It's just a fact. It's a ubiquitous truth. It just is what it is, and we need to contend with it. The way I think to contend with it is bottom up, not top down. Because what people are doing now is they're just, no pun intended, they use a broad sweeping brush with AI. So I have a friend, very successful. He has a business that relies very heavily on inbound calls. He got romanticized by this company that has an AI call center, swaps his human call center, his biggest cost of goods or cost of service was this human-based call center, shuts them down, runs a quick trial first, runs a trial for 30 days with the AI-driven call center, and his profit goes through the freaking roof. Better conversions, lower cost. Shuts down the call center. AI call center crushes it for 180 days, and then on a cliff, dies on the vine. Can't figure out why. You go back and do the analysis. Here's what happens. The human call center was nurturing a pipeline of prospects, about a 180-day long pipeline, interestingly, Austin, of people that had been in touch with a human, had gone through the sales cycle, understood the value proposition, agreed to pricing, and had basically already made the decision. So you take that person and you send them to an AI-driven call center. They're not repelled, and they're going to convert. And they might even convert a little bit faster. But he killed all the warm nurture that his human call center would have provided. And now he's trying to go back and get those people, and they don't trust him at all, right? So the way to build AI, we have the archetypal view and paradigm of business ownership is think like 1940s auto manufacturing plant where you're the fat cat with the cigar on the mezzanine and you're looking down on the people that are on the assembly line. And that's how all of us look at our business in certain ways. And what people are doing is they're looking down, cigar in hand, saying, hey, you, use AI to do that whole process. That I want that whole assembly line replaced with AI. That's the catastrophic damage. The way to do it is to go to the assembly line, and then you talk to Jerry, who's third generation, whatever he is, piston engineer. I don't know anything about cars, so I'm assuming pistons are a thing. And Jerry has done that his whole life. His dad did it his whole life. His granddad did it his whole life, which means Jerry understands that inside out, upside down, left, right, and center. And Jerry, on his assembly line, which has 30 people on it, is responsible probably for 5 tasks. Task 1 has to be human intervention, because the transition from whatever's coming to him needs to be viewed by a human, and the AI, let's say, doesn't have the optical recognition to be able to do that properly yet. Task 2 probably needs to be human. Jerry goes, wow, task 3, this little robot the boss gave me really does do this better. I'm going to let task 3 do the thing, But task 4, I don't trust it. I'm going to watch it. And task 5 needs to be human again. That's bottom up. AI top down, catastrophically damaging. AI bottom up will be the most impactful thing that's ever happened to your small business. And the only way to do that is to incentivize your employees to utilize AI in a way that aligns your, what would you say? Aligns your interests. Because employees see what we see, which is that's going to take my job someday. So how do you incentivize the employee to use a thing that's going to take his job? And that's the game that we're all playing right now. And there's a myriad of ways to do that. There's probably a whole other podcast.
Absolutely. And, it's interesting. We just had, we have weekly mastermind calls with our clients, right? We get them all on a Zoom call each week. Last week, we developed an AI for doing color consultation. So they're actually out on a site, taking a photograph of a client's cabinets, let's say, and they can repaint it within ChatGPT within a few seconds using a very simple prompt that we created for them. We just found out today that one of our clients has been using it, selling jobs like crazy. It's been assisting with his team in the whole sales process. So I think if you're not utilizing AI today in a painting business, for instance, how much impact do you think that's going to have on your company from a negative standpoint versus those that are using it today?
Sean Putty had a really great quote. He has this podcast called My First Million. If you haven't heard him, he's worth listening to. And he talked about the K-shaped economy. I don't think this is his, by the way. I'm citing him because I don't remember who he cited. But the K-shaped economy, if you think of the letter K, the base of the K is just the line in the sand. It's right now. It's the identification of where we are at the moment. The downward trending leg of the K is 80% of humanity. 80% of humanity in a post-AI world falls to absolute zero in terms of productive output. You are superfluous to the endeavor. Universal basic income is your future. Stay home, watch Netflix. Nobody needs you. The upward trending leg of the K is 20%. 20% of people are going to become so potent, they become impossible to visually articulate. They will do all the productive things. If you're one of the companies using AI, you're one of the 20%. If you're not, you're one of the 80%. This is not a game you can play catch up, because what we're talking about is a framework of leverageability that acts as a flood, and the flood is coming. And it's there's the fun saying, pioneers get shot, settlers prosper. Great. In you can play that game both ways, right? It's like early bird gets the worm or the early worm gets eaten. And I'm like, well, are you the bird or are you the worm? Are you the prey or are you the predator? If you don't allow yourself the opportunity to benefit from this type of leverage, when the event horizon happens, you won't have the chance to try. So I'm not telling you to go all in. What I am saying is you have to have, it's a foot on the boat and a foot on the dock. You have to have a foot on the boat and a foot on the dock. And as soon as you start to see the boats leaving, jump. Because if you don't have a foot on the boat, you're not going to be able to get that foothold in time.
How much time do you think we have? I mean, when you talk about robotics, right? I think we're all on the same page there. That could be a couple of years out at least until we start seeing some major impacts there. But let's say just for the trades as a whole. So if we're looking at contractors, painting, for instance, to your point, I think is pretty AI resistant. I think it's going to more impact the top of funnel for them. But as an economy as a whole, you brought up a lot of really good points about, let's say, self-driving cars. What is the inflection point? Everybody's guessing right now, but I'm curious to get your input.
Yeah. So, it's the interesting, there's the fun story. If you go camping around bears, you don't need to outrun the bear. You just need to outrun whoever you're with. So just go camping with slower friends, right? As far as the adoption, I think is going to be, what am I saying? The constraint is legislative, not technological. The technology basically already exists for every implementation, and now we need to see to where the legislation lands, and that's going to be different in every country. I think Europe is going to be the hold back. The US is going to be the push forward. Asia is probably going to be the fastest, but then also their implementation, I think, is probably not going to necessarily be the most entrepreneurial. And I don't think that's the question. I don't think that matters. Here's what happens: it's not about when everybody gets replaced. It's about when does the dam break? When is the initial displacement that cascades? So, and I don't think painters are as safe as you might think. And I hope that's okay to say. Feel free to edit this out, Austin. Yep. Here's why. I'm actually investing in trades businesses because I believe that trades businesses are way more resilient than the digital sphere. So I'm trying to buy septic tank companies or concrete resurfacing. I like things that have high infrastructure costs. A septic truck is $250,000. When the Uber driver loses his job, he can go to Home Depot and he can buy a mop, a squeegee, and a bucket. So I wouldn't want to be a window washer. I wouldn't want to be a handyman. I wouldn't want to be a babysitter. I wouldn't want to be in home care. I wouldn't want to be a maid, and I wouldn't want to necessarily be a painter. I'm not saying that painting isn't a high skill trade. I am saying it's easy to fake the funk though, because you hang a shingle and say, I have a 100-year painting business, and I hang a shingle and say, well, I can slap paint on the wall, and I did it for my grandpa's house. Most consumers really don't know the difference, and I'm going to charge way less than you because I'm trying to replace my $15 an hour I was making driving an Uber, and you actually have a whole business to run. So I think getting out ahead of that event horizon and trying to figure out how you build your moats, because when the labor collapse happens, you're going to see people rushing, and there's going to be, here's the thing that's crazy, low-end white collar, every call center supervisor in the country, like low-end white collar. And dude, it's actually scary. AI beats radiology 1,000 times out of 1,000. Radiologists are done, and that's a high-end job. That's an ultra high-end job. A lot of bookkeeping, CPAs, financial services, a lot of these things, you're going to see these people drop and not know what to do. And they're going to do what? They're going to go buy franchises because they're going to go buy themselves the job that would be necessary. And what are all these franchises in right now? You've got all these franchises. So you're going to see huge floods into the market, and there's going to be massive competition for price. My opinion, the only moat is excellence. If you try to compete on price, you are going to die on the vine. Be the 20%. That's great. Invest in your reputation, invest in authority, build authority in your local market. If you're a local painter, you can't afford not to be the Alex Ramosi in 85258 or whatever it is. People are like, oh, I don't need to do that. That's for them digital folks. No, it's not. It's not anymore. It's for you. Because if I'm the homeowner that actually wants to invest in my home and I don't want the cheapest, I need to know who's the best. And the time to establish yourself is right now.
So good. Kasim, we covered a lot today, man. I would love to have you on for another conversation in the future. I do want to reiterate, though, the hirebook.com. Tell the audience again, what is in that offer there? So they get the book and the audiobook. Is that correct?
Yeah. So if you go to the hirebook.com, you get the audiobook, you get the pre-release book, the advanced reader copy. It's not even published yet. You get the cheat sheet, the worksheet. I have a job posting board that has every single global job board segmented by category and also by region if you ever wanted to hire internationally. And then I also have a collection of resources. They're all templates. So I have a templated contractor agreement that's been legally reviewed, follow-up emails, rejection emails, trial projects, et cetera, et cetera. It'll get you as close as you can get, but please don't just use the templates wholesale. Customize them, like add your own personality. And I promise you, if you're disciplined with the process, you're 7 steps away from the greatest hire you've ever had in your entire entrepreneurial life. My only ask is, if it works, tell people. I want my name to be synonymous with the word hire. And so give the book away, share it with as many people as you want, far and wide. If possible, open your mind and your horizon up to hiring people in international markets. I think that they deserve the same access to opportunities that we have here in the States. And you can do that. If somebody's behind a desk, chances are 80% of that job's remote anyway. So a lot of customer service, answering the calls, marketing, things could be very digital. You could hire internationally, even if you don't necessarily think you can.
Office managers, project managers, anybody that's answering a phone, you can outsource that in any industry. So yes, we have clients that have executive assistants even. Put them on a phone. As long as they have a good communication skills, you put them through these 7 steps. Cannot recommend it enough. Kasim, I appreciate you being here today, brother. Let's chat again soon.
Thanks for having me, Austin. Appreciate you.
Hey, thanks for hanging out with us on that episode. I hope you guys enjoyed that chat as much as I did. Now, listen, if you guys are hungry for more conversations like this, go swing by our website. It's basecoatmarketing.com/podcast. And finally, we are very open to feedback. So if we haven't covered a topic or there's someone you want us to chat with, please let us know. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss out on the next conversation for painters.